Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching my presentation. I'm Ishaan Sekhon. I'm either your student or your classmate, but regardless, I'm happy you're watching this presentation. Before we begin, I must preface that I cannot activate presenters mode on Google Slides because of a technical malfunction that is outside of my control. However, I can still present the slides to you and still keep the same amount of quality if you will be engaged with me. Thank you so much. It's time to continue. My topic is about racial redlining and how racial redlining financially excludes African Americans solely on the basis of race, not on the basis of wealth, quality of living, status, or merit. Here's my introduction. So I'm including this abstract here to give context for anyone who isn't aware of or isn't very familiar with redlining. Redlining is the practice of excluding applicants from obtaining mortgage loans based on their housing geography. The desirability of the neighborhood impacts the loan a resident can receive. Discriminatory redlining is illegal, but prejudice of loan agents can still influence their decisions. Although redlining impacts many races, I will primarily focus on African Americans and how their mortgage rates compare to white Americans to get my point across. Of course, racial redlining affects all races. And to go back to desirability, for all who don't know, desirability refers to how loan agents grade houses and determine if they should be redlined or not redlined. And it basically means how desirable is the house and how desirable is this neighborhood to live in. That's all it means, and it's very open to loan agents' interpretation. So why am I discussing this topic? Why is this even important? Well, I hope to answer the sociological question of how redlining financially harms Black Americans more than white Americans, to unveil how the institutional practices give officers the agencies to discriminate. My research reveals how social prejudices impede Black Americans from fairly climbing through the social classes and that racial redlining robs Black Americans of deserved money. I hope to present you this case with my thesis. So here's my thesis. Now I'll read it aloud. Racial redlining is a form of discrimination that inhibits the social mobilization of African Americans by preventing them from attaining the mortgage loans they're eligible for. By presenting the social mobility of Black Americans in comparison to white Americans, racial redlining not only ruins their quality of life, but also reinforces incorrect prejudices about Black Americans being inferior to white Americans. Now, to clarify what I just said, I'm saying that varying mortgage rates, which result in less money for Black Americans, create this notion that Black Americans are worse than white Americans. That is not true. I'm here to prove that Black Americans are equal to white Americans. That's just a system that is wrong. So here's my analysis. Before we begin, this quote from W.E.B. Du Bois in his work The Souls of Black Folks perfectly sums up racial redlining. To be a poor man is hard, but to be a poor race in the land of dollars is the very bottom of hardships. This quote refers to how, although this quote doesn't directly refer to redlining, it perfectly sums up the situation by showing how African Americans who can't get financial compensation struggle to control their lives and struggle to find happiness. So, how do, I also believe that discriminatory redlining reflects critical race theory. And to clarify, and to recap, critical race theory refers to how the racial prejudices from slavery poison U.S. culture, and that basically means that although slavery is abolished, these racial prejudices have carried on into U.S. institutions and U.S. societies. So, discriminatory redlining is an example of criminal deviance where loan agents can exclude African Americans from fair loans. According to Stephen Ross and John Yinger, authors of Color of Credit, loan approval rates are lower with minority applicants. This connects to critical race theory by suggesting that Black Americans are unfairly discriminated against. And now we'll go back to desirability. So again, to clarify, desirability is how loan agents grade the quality of living around a house. Racial redlining also represents institutional discrimination because they grade locations on desirability. Manuel Albers, author of Place Exclusion and Mortgage Markets, reveals that since neighborhoods are redlined on desirability, loan agents can grade with prejudice. Their interpretation can undermine financial gains for Black Americans. So this demonstrates how the loose interpretation can allow social prejudices to change the desirability of a community on the specific races inhabiting that community. So now we'll go on to discussing how racial redlining causes the devaluation of Black assets and ultimately strips Black Americans of wealth. Loan agents cripple the structural mobility of African Americans by devaluating their assets based on their residential areas. According to Brookings, a news organization, some loan agents give varying mortgage rates on the same house depending on the applicant's race. This demonstrates how U.S. institutions can create a closed system of stratification for minority groups by unfairly withholding the necessary monetary resources. This implies that for some minorities, specifically Black Americans in this instance, that it's very difficult to climb through social classes because of the loan agents withholding specific funds. So, how do the cultural misconceptions and poor advice of loan agents impact these mortgage loans? Well, although racial redlining is illegal, loan agents can discriminate against a specific ethnicity by controlling their effort. According to Gregory D. Squires and Sally O'Connor, co-authors of Color and Money, Politics and Prospects for Community Reinvestment in Urban America, researchers in the Boston Federal Reserve Bank in 1992 found that loan officers helped white applicants more than similarly qualified black applicants. The loan agent's willingness to work more for the white applicants indicates that there is white privilege within the system. This power could be due to a cultural affinity between loan agents and specific applicants, or simply racist loan agents using their power to enforce their prejudices upon these people. So this is a part two of the slide that came before. Loan agent discrimination continued. Since racial redlining still exists due to the racial prejudices of institutions, loan agents can diminish the wealth of African Americans and subjugate them to lower quality residential areas. This enhances white privilege and decreases the socioeconomic status of Black Americans. This makes racially segregated housing one of the norms of U.S. cities and towns. By preventing Black Americans from consolidating financial capital, redlining undermines the intergenerational mobility of Black Americans and the idea of the U.S. as a meritocracy. So, in conclusion, by preventing Black Americans from obtaining fair loans, the U.S. loan institutions and their officers create financial and geographical segregation between Black and white Americans. This associates Black Americans with poorness, falsely supporting the, no the notion that they are inferior because of their varied success. However, by researching these disparities conclude that there is no racial superiority or inferiority between similarly qualified Black Americans and white Americans in terms of loan eligibility. This disparity only exists because institutions and agents have racial prejudices when working with or accepting minority applicants. Here are my references. Before I end my presentation, I just want to say to everyone, thank you for watching this. I hope my presentation taught you something today, or at least made you think about racial redlining more. Thank you so much, and this is the end of my presentation. I truly appreciate your time. Okay.